Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. Welcome to the Flexible Learning for the Policy Development Towards Inclusion for All, our 9th EEA webinar. This event is brought to you by the UNESCO and EEA, Equitable Education Alliance. My name is Minson Park from the National Institute for Lifelong Education, NILE in short, in Republic of Korea. And I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. Thank you, UNESCO and EA colleagues for organizing today's event. So a quick announcement. Today's webinar is being live streamed on Facebook, Equitable Education Hub Facebook page. And for Thai speakers, if you prefer to listen in Thai, please click the Thai interpretation channel on your Zoom application, or you can watch the live stream on EF Thailand Facebook page. So let me give you a brief introduction of the session. So this session is the part of the 9th EEA meeting, where we aim to highlight future skills in development, future skills development for youth, and the current situation faced by the LGBTIQ+ students and students with special needs. For today's webinar, I'm delighted to be joined by our 3 fantastic speakers, speaking on a variety of issues in inclusive education. So firstly, Mr. Ilan Aspolani, please forgive me if my pronunciation is not correct, who is the project manager for the Asian Foundation. He'll be talking about building future skills of Asian youth and instilling stronger Asian identity. Next, Dr. Timur Ohanan, Faculty of the Learning Sciences and Education in Thammasat University, Thailand. He'll be providing us with more information about the school reality for LGBTQ+ youth. And lastly, but not the least, our 3rd speaker, Professor Tantisalam, Director of Special and Inclusive Education Research Unit and Faculty of Education at Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. She'll be talking about breaking the inclusion barriers, fostering equity in students with special needs transition to work. I will give more detailed information of each speaker at the beginning of their presentation later. Now, if you allow me, let me give you a very brief opening notes to this session. So in Asia and Pacific region, we're seeing more young people receiving more education than ever. However, they are faced with a vulnerable labor market situation. With the onset of COVID-19 pandemic crisis in 2020, socioeconomic landscapes has changed significantly as the pandemic devastated mobility as well as the labor market access to many. Continuing financial crisis, along with the tightening labor market, made all the matters worse, which made it even harder for young people to find decent work opportunities. And many of these people have fallen into becoming NEETs, those who are not in education, employment, or training. And youth who are NEETs they have tendency to be exposed to a higher risk of poverty and social exclusion, as they often lack the means to improve their skills and competencies, which will allow them to have more chances in their life. Thus, improving employment, educational and training opportunities, as well as promoting social inclusion among these youth, especially these disadvantaged youth, is a major policy concerns for many of the governments across the Asia Pacific region, as well as others in the world. And also, moreover, we have in the Reimagining Our Futures Together report, which is a report by the UNESCO in 2021, the importance of schools as a paramount educational environment in our society, which emphasize the inclusiveness, equity, and the school's role in supporting the well-being of individuals and communities were highlighted in this report. That is, the schools must provide an educational environment that meets the physical, social, and emotional needs of students, regardless of their gender orientation, their place of origin, and etc. However, which has not always been the case for many of the youth in Asia Pacific, and that is why we see a need to create a more inclusive school environment for these LGBTIQ plus youth, as well as the children who need special attentions or special needs. However, we're seeing many of these youth facing a discrimination in schools in terms of encountering higher rates of violence, or especially or for some children facing lack of facilities that meets their needs in terms of the children with the disabilities or special needs, which in turn makes the situation worse for these students, making them to drop out, have more tendency to drop out from schools. So we need to have greater efforts to make these learners or the children to stay in school, and these children's needs should be considered in every school environment to ensure that they stay in school to receive the education that they need. So to respond to these issues and other issues that we see in education, the 9th EEA meeting will be highlighting the theme of flexible learning for policy development towards inclusion for all, as this applies to national and local levels, and I believe also in terms of regional levels as well. So for today's meeting, the meeting also aims to summarize the successes, challenges, and reflections by the EEA, and we'll try to serve as a knowledge platform that everyone can share their experiences, and so we can learn from each other and move forward. So thank you for bearing with me for the opening and opening notes. And let me give the floor to our first speaker, Mr. Ilan Ascolani. And before I give the microphone to him.
Okay, good morning. Sorry, good afternoon. Okay, shall I start my presentation?
Yes, please, Mr. Ascolani.
Okay, let me set my timer. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank UNESCO, Bangkok, and Equitable Education Alliance for inviting me to speak at today's webinar session. My name is Ilan Ascolani, and I am the project manager for the ASEAN Foundation SFP Joint Initiatives. So in the next 15 minutes, I'll be presenting about what the ASEAN Foundation is doing in terms of providing opportunities, upskilling and reskilling for young people across 10 ASEAN countries, including underrepresented youth. And I think it's aligned with the main topic of today's webinar session, which is flexible learning for policy development toward inclusion for all. So yeah, let me share my screen. Okay. Wait a second. Okay, so before I start my presentation, allow me to share some information about the ASEAN Foundation. Maybe for some of you, it's the first time for you to hear the ASEAN Foundation. So the ASEAN Foundation was established on 15 December 1997 as an intergovernmental organization and ASEAN body under the ASEAN Charter. So our vision is to build a cohesive and prosperous ASEAN community. And our mission is to commit promoting ASEAN awareness to people-to-people interaction and collaboration with ASEAN stakeholders to build a caring, cohesive, equitable, inclusive, and peaceful ASEAN community. So basically, what the ASEAN Foundation is doing is actually to promote ASEAN awareness. We are trying to, some information about ASEAN, what ASEAN is doing. So what are the opportunities that ASEAN citizens, young people across the 10 ASEAN countries can get from ASEAN. So that's basically the our mission, and we are also trying to provide opportunities, upskilling, reskilling opportunities for ASEAN citizens, especially young people from the 10 ASEAN countries. And of course, as mentioned in the mission statement, in order to to do this kind of ASEAN awareness promotion, providing opportunities, reskilling and upskilling opportunities, the ASEAN Foundation is not working alone. So that's why we really value and embrace the collaboration with ASEAN stakeholders. So the ASEAN Foundation is responsible to our board of trustees, which are the 10 ASEAN ambassadors, the 10 ASEAN ambassadors of the 10 ASEAN countries to ASEAN, as well as the General of ASEAN, including the ambassador of the Kingdom of Thailand to ASEAN, who is the ambassador Urawadi. So we are responsible to to update and report our programs, our achievements, our milestones to our board of trustees, to these 10 ambassadors and the Secretary General of ASEAN. And so this is our mandate. So first, we are trying to build a greater ASEAN awareness and identity. As I mentioned earlier, we are trying to provide some comprehensive information about ASEAN, what ASEAN is doing, and what we can benefit from ASEAN. And we are also to build ASEAN identity, so not simply the national identity, but also the ASEAN identity. So we are hoping that by participating in our program, so the participants are not only proud of being a national of the Philippines or Singapore, for example, but also they are proud of being ASEAN citizen. So that's what we are doing as well, and we do this by increasing people-to-people interaction. So that's why programs, we are always trying to connect people from the 10 ASEAN countries in order for them to build networking, to build their networks, as well as to build their ASEAN identity, and also do the promotional cultural exchange. We have a program with the Korean government to promote cultural exchange, arts and culture in the ASEAN region. The other mandate that we have as ASEAN Foundation is to improve the lives of ASEAN people, especially young people, including underserved youth. And we are doing this by providing opportunities for upskilling and reskilling. And I think this is aligned with today's topic, which is flexible learning. So because when we are providing this upskilling and skilling opportunities, so these opportunities are actually flexible. So these opportunities are not time bound. So every participants can learn anytime they have time, anywhere. So that's why we see that these upskilling and skilling are a part of flexible learning. And again, I also mentioned before that the ASEAN Foundation is not working alone in doing these mandates, yeah, but we are doing collaboration and working together with relevant stakeholders. And yeah, when we are doing our programs, when we are doing our works, we we are always building networkings and collaboration with relevant stakeholders, including the government, private sector, local community, educational institution, and media. And of course, we need support from the government because when we want to reach out to our beneficiaries, we need endorsement and support from the government. By getting support and endorsement from the government, we will be able to reach out to much more beneficiaries, including the underrepresented communities. And of course, because some of our programs are upskilling and reskilling opportunities, and we are providing technologies, the latest digital technological things and elements. That's why we need to work together with the private sectors, with the companies like SAP, Google, Microsoft, Huawei, etc. Because we are trying to bring these latest technologies and introduce them to our beneficiaries. And yes, we also work together with our local communities because these are the communities that have direct access to local people, to the grassroots level. And of course, we also work together with educational institutions because we are also targeting students, high school students, secondary school students, as well as tertiary students. Also, we work together with media because I think media plays an essential role in terms of promoting and communicating our programs to wider audience. By the support of the media, we are able to reach out to much more, to hundreds and even thousands of participants, beneficiaries, so that they will participate in our programs. And the second thing that we do in the ASEAN Foundation is we always engage and involve our program alumni in our programs. So after they become the alumni, we actually always invite to be part of our programs by the mentors, by being the ambassadors, or maybe by helping us in terms of promoting and communicating our programs. And yeah, the next thing that we do in the ASEAN Foundation is embrace inclusivity. Yes, we really highlight the importance of including underrepresented communities in our programs, and we are also prioritizing female participants to participate in our programs. Because it's a part of our commitment to make our programs inclusive. And lastly, we also create program champions. We try to engage our alumni to be the program champions. What these champions are doing is actually they help us, they help us promote the programs, inspire other youth, other participants to be part, to take part in our programs. So this is how the ASEAN Foundation is doing, and in terms of implementing and running our programs. And these are our partners that support the ASEAN Foundation in running our programs. Of course, we get support from the government from the 10 ASEAN countries, and we also work together with private sectors. As you can see from this slide, we work together. We have been doing good collaboration and partnership with Google, Maybank, Huawei, SAP, Microsoft, Plan International, etc. And we also work together with our dialogue partners like EU, IFAD, USAID, New York, National Youth Council in Singapore. And we also work together with, as I mentioned, with the universities, tertiary students, youth community, and media. Yeah. So now let me share some of the programs that we do in the ASEAN Foundation in terms of upskilling and reskilling opportunities. So first we have the ASEAN Data Science Explorers. Second, we have empowering youth across ASEAN. Third, we have ASEAN Social Enterprise Development Program. And lastly, we have Seeds for the Future. So the ASEAN Data Science Explorer has been running since 2017. So next year will be our 8th year, in running this program. So this program is basically to, to allow participants to learn about data analytics, but it's not simply learning about data analytics, but it's also about how data analytics can be utilized to solve the socio-economic issues across ASEAN. So I think by participating in this program, the participants are not only able to learn about data analytics, but they are also able to understand about the socio-economic issues in ASEAN. They will also be able to understand about United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and how they can be part of solving these economic issues using data analytics skills that they learn from this program. So yeah, I think detailed information is available in the website. I think I won't be able to explain in detail because of the time constraint. Now, so the second program that we have is the Empowering Youth Across ASEAN. So this is our program with Maybank Foundation. So in this program, we actually selected youth to implement the projects, projects in specific local communities in a few in some ASEAN countries. So before they do the projects in the local communities, we are providing them with the workshop and capacity building. So the idea of this workshop and capacity building is basically to prepare this youth to be able to implement their projects in local communities well and effectively. And we also work together with the local organizations in running this initiative. And this program, the ASEAN Social Enterprise Development Program, is targeting the social enterprises. So we are helping the social enterprises in growing their business operations. We are helping them, to grow, to have access to market, to help them dissolve their operation and management. Their operation and management, and we are also providing them with the seed grants, mentorship, from SAP, TikTok, and we are also helping them to to access markets so that they will grow sustainably. And again, when we are selecting our beneficiaries, we are also we are prioritizing the importance of the inclusiveness. So we prioritize the participants coming from underrepresented backgrounds to be part of our programs. Okay, so and this is the last program that we have, ASEAN Seeds for the Future. So this is what we do with Huawei. So in this program, the participants will learn about the latest technologies from Huawei, like data analytics, AI, and then cloud computing, 5G, etc. So besides learning latest technologies, the participants have also the opportunity to travel to China to visit the headquarters of Huawei. So this is another program that we have. So basically, there are other programs that I cannot mention one by one because of the time constraint. But if you would like to get more information about what we are doing at ASEAN Foundation in terms of upskilling and reskilling, you can follow our social media websites, or you can also visit our website. Okay, so I think that will be my end of presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ilan Ascolani, for your presentation on the overview of the Asian Foundation. And because I haven't had a chance to introduce a bit more about him, let me just say a little bit. on Mr. Ascolani. And he has been overseeing two main projects in the Asian Foundation's partnership with the SAP the last 7 years, Asian Data Science Explorers and Asian Digital Empowerments, which are aimed to empower youth, including underserved youth, across the Asian member states. And Mr. Ascolani has more than 10 years professional experience in overseeing education and youth empowerment related programs. Thank you again, Mr. Ascolani, for your presentation. And let me now introduce you to the second presenter today, speaker, Dr. Timo Ohanen, Faculty of Learning Sciences and Education at Thammasat University. Dr. Ohanen has lived in Thailand for nearly 20 years, and he has been conducting research on gender and sexual minority issues in mental health services, gender and sexuality-based violence, bullying and discrimination, as well as on sexuality education. And Dr. Ohanen has led a large-scale national study on gender and sexual minority youth mental health in Thailand, supported by the Save the Children Thailand. So now, Dr. Ohanen, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me share my slides firstly. So just to clarify, my last name is pronounced Ojanen. It's like a Y. Anyway, so yes, indeed, I will share about the findings of a project that I and a team of researchers conducted in collaboration with Save the Children Thailand. So just before getting into the details of the findings, I'd like to explain about my terminology a little bit. So by gender minorities, I mean groups who are in a minority position because of their gender identity, like transgender or non-binary groups. And bisexual minority is the same, but with regard to sexual orientation. So that would be like gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual youth. And by extension, these two terms are also understood to include intersex people, although we often have very little data about the issues. So as you can see from the title, my topic will be on mental health. And I'd like you to keep in mind that although mental health is very important to the well-being of the youth in general, it's also really important to their learning. So like the study that I will share about, we looked into anxiety and depression quite a lot. And these two problems, we could say, are maybe the most common problems that we encounter in mental health. And when people have high levels of anxiety and depression, it's really an obstacle to their learning as well, and can lead to absenteeism and not being able to focus and so on. But let's get into the study. So many of you might already know that gender and sexual minority youth, as well as adults, have poorer mental health than the general population or their cisgender or heterosexual peers. And there have been efforts to explain this pattern since more than 20 years ago. And the key model to explain these things is called the minority stress model. This one explains that many mental health problems are caused by stress. And when you belong to a minority group, you are more likely to experience stress than the general population. So on top of all the everyday stresses that people have to face, gender and sexual minority group also have to experience additional discrimination and violence. And when you live in this kind of atmosphere, it may prompt you to hide your identity, living in the closet, so to say, and maybe hate your identity. And these things then, in turn, make it harder for you to access social support that would be appropriate for you. And although this big picture is known quite well all over the world, Save the Children Thailand wanted to know what the situation is like in Thailand, which is often mistakenly seen as a bit of a LGBTIQ plus heaven. Well, it's not. And I think once you see the findings, you can see what it really looks like. So in this study, we collected all the data online, and we got quite a nice sample set of more than 3,000 participants. And I mostly draw on the quantitative findings this time. We also collected 38 online interviews to give us a more nuanced picture of the situation. And when we start to look first at the risk factors, we can see that violence in its various forms, like the 5 forms you can see on the screen, is really common in the lives of gender and sexual minority youth. It's most youth actually in these groups who have experienced at least some forms of violence. And the more violence they would face, the more it would affect their mental health. With discrimination, I don't have it on the slides, but on average, the participants had faced discrimination in 2 to 3 contexts. So it might be at the home, in educational institutions, in the workplace, healthcare settings, etc. And there's another key problem that often happens with these youth. People around them will try to change their sexual orientation or gender identity by, for example, telling them how they must dress, how they must speak, how they must, express their identity in many different ways. And the 3 key contexts that we see are the family, the school, and the community. And as you will see, this is another risk factor in the lives of these youth. And when we look at the levels of depression and anxiety, so keep in mind that this data were collected with standardized instruments, which are designed to function so that if you are in the none/minimal group, it means that were you to go see a psychiatrist, you would be unlikely to get a diagnosis of depression or an anxiety disorder. But if you're anywhere in the mild, moderate, or severe groups, then it's quite likely that you would get a diagnosis of these kinds of problems. So from these graphs, we can see that 70 to 80% had either depression or anxiety. And that is really high. Now, there is some evidence that even in the general youth population, the rates are much higher than they used to be. But compared to those figures, which is not shown on the slides, in particular, the severe forms of these problems were particularly common among our participants. And linked to especially depression, suicidal ideation and attempts. So among our participants, more than a half of them had thought of suicide in the past 1 year, and 16% had attempted suicide. That's really quite a worrying figure. And one in 4 had engaged in other forms of self-harm, like cutting their bodies in ways that isn't lethal, but nevertheless leave some marks. And when we then get to looking into how do the risk factors and the outcomes like anxiety and depression play out, so we saw that it really looks quite similar to how the minority stress model predicts. So violence, these 4 SOGI change efforts, the number of contexts where they were discriminated were all risk factors as predicted by the model. But also, in keeping with general population research, we found that if the participant was assigned female at birth, they were also at higher risk of anxiety and depression. And that really matches the general population picture. As for protective factors, we had something called resilience that we also measured. It's the ability to withstand problems in your life or bounce back when you face some problems. That was the most important predictor of not having anxiety and depression or having lower levels of them. Also, having sufficient income was protective. And for anxiety, our findings did show that it gets better. You get slightly older and your anxiety levels will gradually come down. But unfortunately for depression, we didn't find this pattern. And for suicidality and self-harm, it was really pretty much the same picture. But you can see that resilience is again the hero of the story. And for that reason, we also wanted to predict, so what predicts resilience in term? You may know the saying by Friedrich Nietzsche that what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Well, our findings show that that is simply not true. Our findings show the opposite. The more violence, the more discrimination they faced, the more difficult it was for them to cope with it. But on the plus side, social support having people who understood, accepted, and were able to support them was beneficial for their resilience. Also, the ability to be out of the closet, public about their identity, was protected and increased their resilience. And again, having sufficient income was protective, and I guess it just gives more options in life that you can use to cope with the issues that you face in your life. And seeing how many people needed mental health services or had mental health issues, we also asked them, did you feel that in the past year you should have seen a mental health provider? More than half said yes. But out of those, only 1 in 5 had actually used mental health services. So 4 in 5 who had the need did not go see anyone. And thankfully, those 1 in 5 who did go see someone felt better as a result. And most felt that their providers were understanding and accepting of their sexual orientation and gender identity. So to summarize the findings, we see that the anxiety, depression, suicidality, and self-harm levels are really high in these groups. And that's caused by risk factors like violence, discrimination, SOGI change efforts, and insufficient income. Social support is helpful by increasing their resilience, and that then protects their mental health. And as we could see, there's really a big access gap to access services. Now, looking then at what can the education sector do? I've split our recommendations here into 3 pillars: reducing risk factors. Sorry, I need some water. Increasing social support, enhancing resilience, and increasing access to mental health services. So with reducing risk factors, preventing bullying, preventing discrimination, and in general, using a gender-neutral approach can be really helpful, as is increasing contents in the curriculum about these issues so that both the kids and the adults can understand these issues better. For social support, it can also be things like peer counseling, buddies, etc. And for formal mental health services, if the schools can have their own mechanisms, that is wonderful, but also building referral networks can be helpful. And teaching the students on how to access mental health services is also quite important. And finally, we have the findings in our report here. At the moment, the English version is in quite good shape. You can access it through the QR code, and you can also email me through the address shown there. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. I better stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ojanen. Sorry for mispronouncing your name earlier.
No problem.
For your presentation and sharing your key findings on your research on sexual minority youth in Thailand. And let me now introduce you to our third speaker, Professor Chinisa Thantisalam, Assistant Professor at Faculty of Education at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand. She has been teaching and supervising undergraduate and graduate level courses and practicums in special and inclusive education at Chulalongkorn University. And her research interest is in developing instructional inventions for students with difficulties in reading and writing in Thai as well as in English. Dr. Chinisa has conducted research projects that relates to the development of a multi-tier student support system for inclusive schools in Thailand. And she is currently researching on the transition from vocational schools to work for learners with special needs in Thailand. Now, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me clearly? Hi. Thank you, Minsu. Thank you very much. And thank you, UNESCO Bangkok and Equitable Education Alliance for having me as a panelist here. It's really my great pleasure to be here and let me share with you one of the research project that we have done so far related to the inclusion barriers and the fostering of equity in students with special needs transition to work. Well, I'm also a director of Special and Inclusive Education Research Unit at the Faculty of Education, Chulalongkorn University, Thailand. And what I'm going to share with you today is one of the research projects that we have currently under the research unit. And before I start with the project, I would like to share with you some of the persons with disabilities in Thailand statistic. I'll just call PWD, and challenges faced by students with special educational needs, I would call SEN, in transitioning to work, and also strategies for supporting students with disabilities in transitioning to work, as well as transition to work for students with special needs in Thailand and the success stories that we have as a finding from our project for 4 years. So let's look at this together. This is the statistic that I have here and show with you. About 3 to 4% of Thailand population now are having disabilities. But this statistic is based on the people with disabilities who register formally through the Ministry of Social Development and Human Security. As I show you here, the female and male proportion are probably not too much different. But the categories of disabilities that you can see here, most we have here is the physical impairment people, about 51%. And the rest you can see we have 0.08 unidentified categories. This is the current data in the year 2023. Now let's look at the statistic for work and employment. It's interesting to see that about 36% of people with disabilities have been employed, while we have about 51% no answer. That can be with a variety of reasons why we don't have the answer for this. About 6.45% unemployed and about 6% unable to work. Let's look at the people with disabilities who get employed. About majority of them, 60%, work in agricultural sectors, which is pretty normal for the whole country of Thailand, and about 31% in private employed. That can be in the working in the factories or private companies, and a tiny percent work with public employed and self-employed, about 70%. But we can't really guarantee how long they work as. Keep in mind that in Thailand, we have both public and private organizations with more than 100 employees are mandated to hire persons with disabilities in the ratio of 1 person with disability per 100 employees. So the law kind of encourage that we do have more employment among PWD. Let's look at the vet school, vocational and training, education and training schools. Basically, if you see the data related to education for PWD or student with special needs, most of them graduated in primary grades, and tiny percent of them in vocational education. And we have data here from the Vocational Education Commission in the year 2023. We have about 678 students with special needs in the category of physical impairment. That's the majority though. And hearing impairment, and the rest of them just intense numbers, not so many, but this is the data that we have for the vet schools. So the challenges that's why we can explain the minimum number of employment of students with special needs in transitioning to work. There's a challenges facing for them by attitudinal barriers in the society, the need for support in self-determination and positive attitude at work, the limited skills applying for job, like interview skills or filing or doing application things, as well as life skills such as financial literacy, how to keep money, social and communication skills. The limitation and safety concerns is also something that we need to pay attention to. That can be related to some kind of work such as construction, machine maintenance, kind of things. And most workplaces that we found do not have sign or label to help students understand and live in workplace, and do not have facilities for physical disability students working there, such as lift or ramp, for example. Strategies that I can tell you now that can use for schools, for workplace, or during the training. First of all is the universal design for learning. That can be something like explicit and direct instruction, games, making the environment at work or in the classroom more lighted, video clips linked to specific exercise, questions to provoke critical thinking, times for pair share work or group work, guided notes, for example. And also the teachers or workplace trainer can do something like observing the emotional well-being. That's one of the things that we can do. Several ways to communicate to students and their families about measures for safety, and preparing learning technology tools, checklists for work, using various assessment tools as well, and building awareness and welcoming atmosphere is very, very important. So let me show you the project that we have done for 4 years. We call the Enhancement Program for Vocational Innovation Scholarships for Students with Special Educational Needs, or SEN students. So the project was granted by EEF, Equitable Education Fund, under the Prime Minister's supervision. So our slogan here is basically making special needs become strength. So empowerment is the key. We make sure that they understand themselves, they know what they like to do for work. And yes, scholarship is some innovative things that we have done. The scholarship go directly to the students, as well as some funding that go to schools to do the strengthening activities to promote the transitioning to work for these students. And also the enhancement program that we from the Faculty of Education have been working closely with the vet schools. So here we now going to 4th year, we have about going to 5th year, we have about 300 students going to 400, about 10 schools in 7 to 8 provinces. And this is the mapping of the areas that we have done all over the country. The current scholarship students, in terms of categories, we have the most categories of the disability that we have is hearing impairment and physical impairment. The area of their study including, for example, art and design, business, engineering, computer science, and IT. And the future careers or dream job, as we list from them, including online business owners, private business owners, technicians, programmers, graphic designer, IT support, or office staff. So here, as we survey for one cohort, we found that we expect about half of them get employed and get a job that they want, and also some of them want to continue in studying higher education. We get no response still though, and we get unemployed, but we still hoping for more and more of the employee status for them. The activities that we have done with them, including improving career readiness, this is the key for our SEN students. We encourage the school to have some kind of IEP or individualized education plan together with the individualized career plan for them. We work with the social partnerships. We work to do job fair for students. We do some knowledge sharing to the public interest to transfer and sharing our research. So our key areas of theme for research, including transitioning to work, career readiness, job competencies, employability, work with employers and private sectors, training at work, teacher-student support, curriculum for employment, and management of the vet schools themselves. So one of the research that we've done recently, last year, we finished this and we developed a prototype of transitioning to work for SEN students in Thailand and came up with 3 guidelines. First of all, make sure that we promote career readiness for the students. Second, provide vet schools for employment of SEN students. Third, creating collaboration among stakeholders, including parents. So here is the promoting career readiness. We focus on life issues, learning, living, and working. And also we modify IEP to the version of IEP Plus transition. And we promote career plan guidance, access to lifelong learning and skills, opportunities for them, like options for careers, and support entrepreneurship as well. For teacher development, we support teacher effectiveness and training in terms of disability-specific teaching methods, assessment, accommodations, career guidance. We encourage team building and workplace exposure for the students. And yes, collaboration with professionals. And guideline 2 also include curriculum development, that it's going to be great if we can align the demands of the current and future job market with the curriculum and work in collaboration with industry experts, modify curriculum based on regular labor market survey and skills-based approach, practical skills directly and relevant to the specific job role, and internships, apprenticeships, on-the-job training opportunities. And the last one, the fostering of collaboration. We focus highly on this because this is the most important things to do to encourage transitioning to work smoothly. The workplace partnerships, community engagement, government coordination, and active collaboration. We have the metaphor of building a relationship in Thai ways, like fighting in Thai mean in Thai we say "cher," dating in Thai we say "จี," and tuning is like "jun," or trying to adjust together, and then holding hands, จับมือกันไป. That's the metaphor that we think that can build collaboration eventually. Well, for policy outcomes, we have few things to get to the policy makers or policy decision makers. Teacher effectiveness and training is very important. Area-based or localized employability initiatives. VET curriculum need to be modified and make it better way to create employment opportunities. Collaboration outcomes, exactly, and resource allocation. And then finally is promoting inclusive society in the country. And by promoting inclusive society, I would like to highlight that it's important for us to have inclusive schools. And when we have inclusive school, it's a chance that we can do inclusive workplaces. The culture is important, culture of inclusion, disability awareness, reasonable accommodation, and social acceptance or mindset that we open for all. This is really, really important. And in terms of research, we need research on inclusivity, the best practice for promoting employment among SEN students, and research in the area, any part of the country, to inform policy, practice decisions that could be supported. Well, that will be my presentation in the topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor, for your presentation and sharing us with the Thailand situation and also your insights on how we should move forward. So now, as we have all three presentations, it's time for a Q&A, discussions and Q&A sessions. And I believe participants has shared many questions through the chat. And UNESCO is now sharing. So the first question goes to our first speaker, Ellen. So the person wants to ask I would like to ask if you can describe further on how the impact of your programs on youth skills and work opportunities is measured and what are the results for it? Mr. Ellen, could you elaborate?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yeah, so basically when we are measuring the impacts of the programs, of course, we need to make sure that this program is running for quite some time, for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, yeah, just to make sure that the impact is valid. But some of our programs are running, you know, for 1 year or 2 years, depending on the commitment of our working partner, our donor. But we also have the programs that have been running for quite some time, like 7 years or 6 years. And we do the impact study to measure the impacts of these programs. We hire an independent consultant to do this impact study to measure the impact of the programs. So in this impact study, we involve a variety of stakeholders to be interviewed, yeah, to involve in focus group discussions, and we also involve our beneficiaries, yeah, our beneficiaries of the programs. And maybe I can share with you one of the impact study of one of our programs, yeah, the ASEAN Data Science Explorers program, because this program has been running for 7 years. And we did the impact study in 2021. And yeah, I think the findings, yeah, based on the impact study, were very positive. Yeah, we get one of the findings is that the program was an excellent experience for the participants, for the beneficiaries. And another finding was that the program also contributed to their employment, yeah, at their current offices. So yeah, so they said that the program helped them to get the new skills, yeah, the skills that they don't get from their university, from their studies, because when they are participating in our programs, they see something new, they see something, they learn something hands-on, something practical that can be applied in real life, that can be applied in the real jobs. So I think that's how the ASEAN Foundation is measuring the impacts of the program. Yeah.
Thank you. And the next question goes to Dr. Timo. So based on your observation, does universities in Thailand provide counseling services that target LGBTIQ+ learners? If this is so, could you share with us an example? And could you also share with us LGBTIQ plus learners advocacy or initiative that addresses mental health and well-being issues at the institutional level, for example, the faculty level and university level, or any youth-led initiative on the issue in their learning settings. Dr. Oyanim?
Okay. Hello again. So as far as I know, there are no LGBTIQ plus specific services being provided by universities, but there are some university-based services like Chula Student Wellness, for example, which has made an effort to make the LGBTIQ plus students feel enough trust in the services to come forward and use the services. For example, some years ago, there was a like a mini film festival or some group discussions on these issues to show that the staff would be understanding and accepting. And I think really that's the most important first step in getting students to use the services when they have the need. So the issue of trust can be one of those important factors in determining whether students would dare to go and use the services or not. As for LGBTIQ plus learners advocacy or initiatives, I think there will be many small scale things, but I'm not aware of them myself. There was one thing called Prism Chat some years ago, which was like an online peer counseling service for LGBTIQ plus youth. But as far as I know, it might have closed down by now. So I guess it would be good to keep track of all these kinds of initiatives and what's happening, what has emerged, what is no longer with us. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's definitely a space where we need a lot more development, both in terms of just general capacity to deal with all the needs that students have, but also in terms of ensuring specific student groups to feel enough trust in the services that they will be able to understand your issues. Yeah, that's all I'd have to say on this one.
Thank you. And the next question goes to Dr. Janisa. So can you share some good process you've seen on how to adapt curriculum and develop teachers to better support learning of special needs students? And how did they adapt to become successful? Dr. Janisa?
Well, hello again. First of all, there is no one size fits all curriculum that is standardized or mainstream curriculum. All of them need to be modified actually all the time to meet students' special needs, no matter it's going to be learning or emotional behavioral special needs or attention problems or need for assistive technologies in teaching and learning in classroom. So my answer is we as teachers need to know the techniques of how to modify in 4 ways. Like first way, the way is to chop and pick and sequence the content we want to teach. And second way is to make the content or knowledge get delivered successfully. And it can be direct or explicit instruction, repeated teaching, active engagement, all kinds of pedagogies that we can work here. But just remember again that there is no one size fits all. And this is important for teacher to keep in mind that flexibility is the key though. So what kind of medias that we pick also make a difference, and the more we can make it multisensory based, the more students can access, and the more they can access, the more they're engaged, they want to engage, and the more they can learn. And finally, assessment is also some pain points in special education that we need to touch upon. But if we have good understanding about it, we will be sure to also modify and get the data we want, that is the students' progress in the curriculum, not just their grades or standardized testing. That's my thought.
Thank you. And there's a second question for Dr. Timo. So the question goes, there are many children and youth who require mental health services, but only some have used the service as per your figure shows. So what are the reasons that they don't use the service, do you think?
Okay, so on this one, I would draw on the qualitative findings that we got from the interviews. Mostly the reasons that we found would be similar to youth in general or people in general, not LGBTIQ plus specific. So there would be reasons to do with the capacity of the system, for example. So in Thailand, the options are basically going to the private sector, where you can be seen quite promptly, but the fees can be quite high. So that's not possible for some people. And then there's the public sector, where things may or may not be covered by social insurance, but being able to access actual mental health services on the public sector, there are often many hurdles. So, for example, if you use your universal health coverage card at one particular hospital, they may or may not have mental health services. And okay, you might be able to be seen by a nurse or a general practitioner, but not necessarily a psychiatrist. And so getting access to an actual psychologist or psychiatrist on the public sector can be quite a long journey in Thailand. But there are also reasons like long distance. Some people just didn't know how to go. Where should they go? How? Some said that their parents opposed them seeing a mental health provider. What else? Yeah, so low awareness, low access, these kinds of things. Mostly very generic reasons, but both having to do with awareness and limitations of the existing systems. So in my mind, building services that are sort of more accessible, not necessarily run by highly trained professionals, but at least people who can provide some first help, whether it's peer counseling or counseling by teachers at the schools, or there are lots of nurses at Thailand's hospitals. So if they can provide at least first-line services, then that can also be helpful. Yeah, so that's my answer to this one.
Thank you. And there's another question for Dr. Chinisa. So observing emotional well-being is a strong element in a multifaceted approach. So do you have good examples or tools for this, specifically to observe emotional well-being in SEN students?
Well, in terms of emotional well-being, I would say it's really important for teachers to always create relationship. So I believe that good relationship can start it all. So the first thing, if teachers and students get to know one another and then have momentarily meeting, maybe informal meetings, or getting to know whatever happen to the life of students, that would be the best things to do, and this can keep well-being of the students. That's my thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So for Mr. Ilan, here's a question for you. So how those forcibly displaced are involved in these very interesting initiatives?
Yeah, honestly speaking, we don't have a specific category of underserved beneficiary that fall under this category. But yeah, I think we are happy to to add this category of underrepresented community into our beneficiary, so that in the future we can also focus on this community, this group of youth as our beneficiaries. But basically, The categories of young people that we have now here in the ASEAN Foundations are the youth that live in tier 3 cities, because we believe that these are the youth that have lack of access to technology and latest technologies. And another category is youth from ethnic minority, youth with a certain gender identity, as well as youth coming from low socioeconomic background. So those are the categories of underserved youth that we are targeting for our programs. But again, yeah, we are open to a new category, and yeah, we are happy to include this category into our beneficiary in the future. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Lin. I believe we have answered most of the questions from the floors. Thank you very much for the speakers as well as our listeners who have provided us with these questions. And once again, let me give you a brief closing remarks of today's meeting. Let me first thank all of our speakers, Mr. Lin, Professor Chinisa, and Dr. Oyanen. Sorry. For your wonderful presentations on different aspects of the inclusive education in terms of displaced youth, as well as helping those youth who are in need situations. And as everybody is fairly well aware of, leaving no one behind is the central principle of the Sustainable Development Goals. And equity and inclusion, as we have discussed today, are the overarching themes in all SDG targets. However, an SDG 4 has a specific target, namely 4.5, which particularly highlights equity and inclusion to ensure inclusive and equitable education and which promotes lifelong learning opportunities or learning opportunities for all, regardless of their age, gender, socioeconomic status, and location, etc. However, we're seeing many countries in the Asia-Pacific region, I believe, have achieved universal enrollment, and the dropout rate is fairly low, like in case of Korea. However, we're still, even in Korea, we still have issues with having more inclusive educational settings. For example, now we're seeing a rise of multicultural background children in Korean education system, and North Korean refugees, and etc. And I believe other countries have similar or maybe different situations as well. However, we're all facing a situation where we need to work together to highlight equity and inclusion in our education. And I believe today's webinar, I hope today's webinar and served as one of our platform for everyone to come and think on how we can move forward with collaboration and cooperation with different stakeholders, government, NGOs, schools, or even private practitioners, and have a better future for everyone. Well, again, thank you very much, everybody, for taking time to come listen to our webinar. And it has been my pleasure to be the speaker for opening and closing sessions, as well as the facilitator. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.